Dan Mele.
Yeah.
Dan is with us today because he is the one who created these amazing images behind us, and he's going to talk to us about it. So tell me about what you do, and then
Sure.
the organizations you work within to do this research.
Yeah, so my job in like a general week, every day can be pretty different because I work with a lot of different groups. A big part of my job is working in coral restoration, and I've been doing that for coming up on a decade now. So coral restoration is a pretty big topic, but the type of work that I specifically do is with a lot of like coral propagation and growing corals in nurseries, and then identifying places on the reef where we want to outline them, right? So trying to give those reefs a jump start back to a healthy state.
Got it. Now I have questions.
Yeah.
Is there, like, what's the criteria for your, like, okay, this is a good reef to put things on? Like, how does that go?
There are a lot of variables that go into it, but definitely looking at historical data is important. Cultural importance, right? Where do people go to snorkel, as well as areas that are going to be targeted as high importance for storm protection, right? So our reefs that are buffering waves coming in.
Right.
So those are a few of the criteria, but we've got a lot of things that we consider before outlining a site.
Got it. Awesome. So I see you have a Reef Response shirt on.
Yep.
And there's so many organizations out of UVI, and I can't keep up with all the acronyms.
Sure. Yeah.
Tell me about some of them and the ones related to this project.
Right. So this project could be done under probably a lot of different groups, I guess you'd say. But to give a little background on Reef Response is the group that all of the coral restoration work at the University of the Virgin Islands falls under. So Reef Response is part of the university, right? But it's kind of like University Reef Response Coral Restoration. Like we're under the umbrella of UVI, but all of our restoration work is done through Reef Response. And our restoration work we do more than just what I mentioned the first time about growing corals and outplaying them. We have monitoring programs that happen because we regularly, because we need to know what the state of the reefs are, right? We have people looking at disease research, coral diseases. And we also have, beyond just the propagation and fragmentation, we have people that are learning to, or working on sexually reproducing corals. So like fertilizing sperm and egg to create a bunch of baby corals.
I was just reading about that.
And I think some of those, some photos that show you.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool what Reef Response has going on. As you mentioned, other groups at the university that I work with. So VICM score is a big one, and for them, my work is less research-based and more media and communications. And EPSCOR funds a lot of the different branches of research at UVI, so ranging from coral to mangroves, fish, watersheds. They've got their toes in a lot of workforce development, all kinds of stuff. So,
and then VIMAS is like under EPSCOR or under Reef Response?
I'm not exactly sure.
So that's like
I don't want to. Don't be on camera talking about that. But Howard Forbes would be the one to talk about that.
Yes, and I confuse them all the time. They know too. Howard and Javon, just so like it's shut down.
Yeah, because Howard is technically VIMAS, Javon is EPSCOR, but they kind of cross.
That's why I always confuse them. You guys need to walk separately.
There's so many acronyms, but in addition to the research aspect that EPSCOR is funding, a big part of their work is communicating to the public. So people like Javon that are in charge of outreach to get people involved, and then myself and Elisa Bryan who run the communications side of things, where we're using different forms of art. So for me, it's photography and filmmaking. Lisa, who I said I work, who also runs the communications department at EPSCOR, she's more in design, web development, digital art, painting, all kinds, like different arts. Writing, she's a great writer. Yeah. So our skills blended together really allows us to do a lot with the vast amount of information we have at EPSCOR that we're trying to synthesize into a digestible format for the public.
Right.
So
let me say,
yeah.
in the last 2 to 3 years, it's the most I've ever seen about any of the marine anything happening here.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations, and good job, because
Yeah.
and I mean, obviously if it wasn't in the location where everyone's watching, like a lot of us are on social media, if it wasn't there before, maybe we just didn't see it and it was being done, but it's very obvious right now. And thank you all, because why don't we know these things? Why aren't we considering these things? Like so many of us who've grown here, grown up here, we don't think about reefs,
When I can
out,
When I can say for coral reefs, is even despite it being in our backyard, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And if you're not a regular snorkeler or you're not a diver, which still, despite being on an island, only a small percentage of us actually do that. It's easy to not see what's happening right next to you, even if you're swimming at Macon's Bay or Brewer's Bay. You could be in the water, but if you're not looking under the water and knowing what's there, it's easy to miss it. Right?
Out of sight, out of mind. There's a lot of great info under each photo. What can we do, not only the children coming here, the parents, just as community members, what can we do to start educating ourselves? Where can we go?
Sure.
Give us some guidelines.
Well, I can tell you what worked for me as a child was simply just exposure to this kind of stuff. So I actually grew up being pretty scared of the ocean.
Really?
When I got started scuba diving, my parents couldn't believe it. I remember specifically being, I think I was like 14 years old, and we went to a family trip to Mexico, and we went out on these kayaks to the reef to snorkel, and I was too scared to get out of the kayak to snorkel. My whole family got out snorkeling the reef. I just stayed in it. I always loved the ocean. I always thought sharks were cool. I always thought marine life was really cool. But I just had that fear that a shark was going to eat me as soon as I went in the water. Right? The older I've gotten, the more I realize that it's kind of an irrational fear. I mean, you want to show caution.
Yeah.
But in
they're
general,
not in there waiting for you.
They're not in there waiting for you,
right?
And the only way I really got over this fear was exposure. Kind of forcing myself to experience a little bit more and a little bit more, and then now to the point where I feel comfortable going for an exercise swim in the morning by myself. So I think especially for youth is exposure is just a big thing. If you can get them in the water, snorkeling, diving, or whatever, that will really change people's worlds. And that's what's great about programs like what Howard and Javon are doing with the YOE and the JOE program, is that's exactly what's helping change that.
Absolutely. I love it. Brilliant. And that's what we're all about. And I just want to thank you for bringing this to us, and making this space where you can educate further. So then, is there anything you'd want to add about the exhibition that we haven't spoken about yet that people can look out for, or?
Sure. I mean, one thing that like I said, my job revolves around science and photography, right? And kind of like science and art, right? It's two things that are maybe I think they're more similar than different, right?
Absolutely.
If you look back to hundreds of years ago, a lot of the top scientists were also artists, right? Or a lot of the top artists were also scientists, right? There's a lot of this blending. In recent years, I feel like it's kind of felt like they're totally polar opposites, right? But I don't necessarily think that's true. And so what my goal is with an exhibit like this is to really, show research, show the complexities of it, right? But make it interesting and put the viewer in a place that they may never go.
Right.
I mean, because it's one thing to just be a snorkeler or a diver, but some of the photos here, I think the one behind me here of Sonora Myling, she's outplaning the coral at 125 feet underwater right there. And very few people, even if they are divers, snorkelers, will ever get to go to those depths, right? So to kind of show the transparency to science and what we're doing, there's also a notion that There's also like the viewpoint of scientists is just kind of like they're wearing lab coats in a lab, mixing some things together, and it's an old white guy, right?
Yeah.
But as you can see by our lab, we have a lot of different people in our group doing this research. So anybody can be a scientist. Pretty much anybody is a scientist every day. You're trying to figure out things, and kids are playing in the dirt. Like that's what science is. So, yeah. So my goal with this exhibit is to really, put science in the complex research complexities in a digestible format. That also is attached to a pretty picture.
Fantastic. When I first started here, I also had this. Art and science wasn't coming together for me, like I didn't get it, but I was also still learning what a children's museum is about, right? And so Amber said this to me. She said, do you remember those science books, and you remember you used to draw, like you have to reproduce what was in there?
Yeah.
So I remember the mitochondria.
Oh,
You have to draw. And she goes, well, who draws all the scientific, who like demonstrates what the scientific things looks like? Artists, right? And I was like, psh, it made all the sense, and I was like, you're right. If we can't see it, how's the explanation going to go any further?
Textbook artist is like a pretty good big field, and how it's changed over the years too is pretty interesting because like I've seen like more modern textbooks in the last couple of years where the art is like they've really put a lot more effort into upping the quality of the art in there versus like when I was a kid. In our textbooks, it wasn't, I can't say they're the most interesting, and you rarely found one that the imagery captivates.
Right.
But I will have my underwater camera so people can see what I bring down when I take these photos, what it looks like.
I can't wait.
Because that's always a big, when the kids see the underwater housing, they're like, how much does that cost? Or, like you get those kind of questions. And but it always attracts them. So that will definitely be an item that I'll have there. And I'm really excited. So
me too.
In addition to UVI and EPSCoR, I do a decent amount of freelance work too. So I have some footage. It's been shown on various broadcast television shows. But if you want to see the stuff that's really pertaining to the stuff we're doing at UVI in the Virgin Islands, if you go to viepscore.org, that's EPSCoR's website, and they have a whole video tab on their website that you can watch all of the past videos that I've created for EPSCoR. Reefresponse.org is our website. We're in the process of doing a full remodeling of that website right now, though. But we do have a link tree, which I'll have QR codes to that on the day of play that people can access. Where if you want to donate or just see like our Reef Response video, which I think might be on one of those QR codes over there too. And then my website is danmelephotography.com. You can also look that up on Instagram and find a lot of like my current work. So while I do post like a lot of my past work on my website, my most current and regular work is on my Instagram page, where I'm just posting snippets from projects that I'm working on. And if you have a project you want to work together on, feel free to reach out to me and see if we can make something happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan.
Cool.
Look how easy that was.
Nah, that's great.
See, you didn't need any
You made it easy.